Learning to speak English fluently is a goal that many people aspire to, but it can often seem like a distant dream. I remember the days when I was a young student, full of ambition but weighed down by self-doubt. I wanted to speak English confidently, to express myself without hesitation, but every time I tried, I found myself stumbling over words, my sentences breaking apart like fragile glass. One day, my English teacher noticed my struggle. She looked at me kindly and said, "Fluency doesn't happen in a day. It's not a gift someone hands you. It's a skill you build step by step. Practice every day, and you will see the change." Her words stayed with me like a gentle nudge, reminding me that progress wasn't about perfection but perseverance. Her analogy stuck with me. She explained that learning a language was like planting a tree. You start with a tiny seed, a few basic words and phrases. Every day, you water it by practicing. You give it sunshine by exposing yourself to new words and sounds. Slowly over time, the tree grows stronger, its roots spreading deep and wide. This idea gave me hope, but it also made me curious. Could I really grow my English tree? Years later, as a teacher, I met a young girl named Meera. She was quiet and reserved, sitting at the back of the classroom. One day, she approached me after class, her face filled with uncertainty. "Teacher," she said hesitantly, "I want to speak English like you. But every time I try, I forget the words. It feels like my mind just goes blank." I saw myself in her and knew how overwhelming the journey could feel. "Meera," I said, "fluency isn't about remembering every word. It's about practicing until the words flow naturally. Think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. At first you wobble and fall, but with practice, you learn to balance. Soon you don't even think about pedaling. You just ride." She looked intrigued but skeptical. "But how do I practice if I don't know where to start?" I smiled and said, "Practice is everywhere. You can practice by talking to your friends, listening to stories, singing songs, or even speaking to yourself in front of the mirror. The key is to take small steps every day." Encouraged, Meera decided to give it a try. She started with something simple, listening to short English stories. She would play the same story multiple times, repeating the sentences out loud. At first, her pronunciation was shaky, and she struggled with unfamiliar words. But she didn't let that stop her. One day, she told me excitedly, "Teacher, I understood half of the story today." Her progress was slow but steady, and her confidence began to grow. To help her further, I introduced her to storytelling. "Every week," I said, "pick a topic and tell me a short story about it in English. Don't worry about mistakes. Just focus on speaking." At first, Meera was hesitant. Her stories were simple, and her sentences were fragmented. But as the weeks went by, she started experimenting with new words and expressions. She discovered that storytelling wasn't just about speaking. It was about connecting, expressing emotions, and sharing experiences. One day, she told a story about her favorite childhood memory. Her sentences were clear, her voice steady. The class listened intently, and when she finished, they applauded. Meera beamed with pride, realizing that her efforts were paying off. Of course, the journey wasn't without challenges. There were days when Meera felt frustrated, especially when she made mistakes. "Teacher," she said one afternoon, "I feel like I'll never get it right. Every time I speak, I mess up." I reminded her, mistakes are not failures, they're lessons. Each mistake shows you what to improve. The more you practice, the fewer mistakes you'll make. I shared my own story of learning English, how I used to mispronounce words and mix up grammar rules. But I didn't give up, I said. I kept practicing, and eventually, those mistakes became stepping stones. Inspired, Meera began to embrace her mistakes. Instead of feeling embarrassed, she started asking questions and seeking feedback. Her willingness to learn made all the difference. One day, Meera had an unexpected opportunity to use her English skills. Her school hosted a cultural exchange program, and she was paired with a student from another country. At first, she was nervous, unsure if she could hold a conversation. But as they began talking, something incredible happened. She found herself recalling words and phrases she had practiced. Her sentences were not perfect, but they were clear enough to communicate. Her partner smiled and responded enthusiastically, and for the first time, Meera felt the joy of connecting with someone through a shared language. When she told me about the experience, her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Teacher," she said, "I spoke English for an hour today. I didn't even realize how much I've learned." From that day on, Meera's confidence soared. She started participating in class discussions, joining English clubs, and even helping her classmates practice. Her English tree had grown tall and strong, its branches reaching out in all directions. She often shared her journey with others, encouraging them to start small and stay consistent. "If I can do it, so can you," she would say. "Just keep watering your tree." Meera's story is a testament to the power of persistence and the importance of practice. Fluency in English, or any language, isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. It's about taking small steps every day, embracing mistakes, and finding joy in the process. Whether it's listening to stories, singing songs, or sharing your own experiences, every moment is an opportunity to learn. Just like Meera, you too can grow your English tree. And one day, you'll look back and realize how far you've come.